The planet was alive, not with the gentle hum of forests back on Earth, but with the raw, primal energy of a world ruled by predators. Towering trees with metallic green leaves stretched into the sky. Thick vines coiled around rocks and fallen trunks, and enormous shadows moved just beyond sight. The air smelled heavy, thick with moisture and the sharp tang of alien flora. Every step seemed to echo, and every sound carried further than it should. Dr. Elias Vance stumbled through the underbrush, his space boots sinking slightly into the soft, spongy soil. His suit, once pristine, was now torn and smeared with mud. The crash had destroyed his ship beyond repair, leaving him stranded on this wild planet. He checked the scanner strapped to his wrist. It beeped intermittently, detecting strange life forms moving in the dense jungle around him. Elias had trained for hostile environments, but nothing in the academy had prepared him for this. Every sense was on high alert. A rustle behind him made him whirl around, only to see a cluster of enormous ferns quiver. Revealing nothing, he exhaled slowly, forcing his pulse to settle. Survival was the first priority. Then he saw them. A shadow detached itself from the dark undergrowth. It was enormous, sleek, and built for speed. Eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, sharp and calculating. Elias froze. There was no doubt they were predators, not like lions or tigers back on Earth. These creatures moved with terrifying coordination, a silent intelligence that humans often underestimated in apex hunters. He counted at least 5 of them at first glance. They were circling him, eyes never leaving his form. Each movement was precise. Their long limbs ended in claws that could tear through steel, and their tails lashed with subtle menace, hinting at power beyond human comprehension. Elias swallowed hard. He knew that running would be suicide. There was nowhere to hide, and the dense jungle, while providing cover, would only slow him down against such predators. So he stood still, breathing shallowly, trying to look smaller, less threatening. The pack advanced slowly. Growls low in their throats vibrated through the ground. It wasn't loud, but Elias could feel it in his bones. The alpha of the pack, slightly larger than the others, stepped forward, sniffing the air. Its eyes locked with Elias's. There was recognition, not of him personally, but of something unusual. The human was calm, or he appeared calm. The alpha tilted its head, sensing his fear yet also sensing something else. Humans, it seemed, were unpredictable, and unpredictability could be dangerous. Then something unexpected happened. One of the younger creatures, a cub, hesitated. It didn't growl. It didn't crouch or bare teeth. Instead, it tilted its head, watching the human with curious eyes. "Do we shield you now?" The words weren't spoken aloud. Elias didn't hear a sound in the usual sense. It was more like a thought directly placed in his mind. His heart nearly stopped. He blinked rapidly, staring at the cub. The rest of the pack stiffened, eyes narrowing. Some growled softly in protest, confused by the cub's strange behavior. But the cub held its ground, waiting for a response. Elias had no idea what to do. His mind raced. Should he run? Should he speak? Speak? How could he communicate with an alien predator that clearly had telepathic abilities? I don't understand, he said aloud, his voice shaking slightly. But the cub didn't move. Somehow it seemed to know he meant no harm. The alpha snarled softly, a warning to the cub. The young one hesitated, then looked back at Elias, eyes wide and curious. It repeated the thought, clearer this time. "Do we shield you now?" Elias realized something profound in that moment. These creatures were more than just hunters. They were intelligent, social, capable of complex thought and emotion. And somehow this cub sensed something in him, perhaps courage, perhaps instinctive empathy, that commanded its attention. He took a careful step forward, slowly, hands visible. He needed to show he wasn't a threat, yet he also couldn't show fear. Maybe you already are," he whispered, unsure if the cub could understand him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the cub crept forward, its small form surprisingly quick and graceful. The other predators stiffened but did not advance. The cub circled him, sniffing the air, brushing against him lightly. Elias realized he could feel its heartbeat, not literally, but in some strange, shared rhythm. He understood in some primal way that this creature was testing him, not attacking, not running, testing. The pack watched silently. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Elias knew the moment was fragile. One wrong move and the entire pack could decide he was prey. But the cub, small and young, was making a choice. one that defied its nature. Elias crouched slowly, lowering his center of gravity. "Okay," he murmured, unsure if the cub could sense the words. "We'll try. Together." The cub's eyes brightened almost imperceptibly. It let out a soft purr, a sound more emotion than communication. The alpha growled again, this time softer, as if warning its pack to hold back. Suddenly, a sound cut through the air, a low roar from deeper in the jungle. Another predator species, larger, more aggressive, with jagged teeth and armored scales, was approaching. The pack tensed, muscles coiled for battle. Elias's heart raced. This was not just a test. This was survival. The cub looked back at Elias. "Do we shield you now?" It asked again, more insistently. Elias realized he had to trust it. For the first time on this alien world, he made a decision not based on fear but on understanding. Then, "Yes," he said firmly. "Shield me." The cub leapt forward instinctively, positioning itself between Elias and the approaching threat. The rest of the pack followed, forming a protective circle around him. Growls and snarls filled the air, but the pack did not attack him. They had chosen to defend him. Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was not just relief, it was awe. These predators, creatures far stronger and faster than him, had recognized something in humanity worth protecting. The larger predator emerged from the trees, eyes locking on the human. It snarled, charging forward, but the pack moved as one. Teeth bared, claws ready, they confronted the intruder. Elias had no weapon but his mind, and yet he was safe. For now. In that moment, he realized something extraordinary. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most dangerous physically, but they were clever, resourceful, and capable of inspiring loyalty, courage, and even love in creatures far more powerful. The cub nuzzled his leg, purring softly, a silent message. The jungle roared around them, alive with danger, yet Elias felt hope. For the first time stranded on an alien world surrounded by predators, Elias Vance knew he might just survive. And perhaps in the eyes of these creatures, humanity had earned a place worth respecting. He looked at the cub and whispered, "All right, partner, let's see what this world has for us." The jungle seemed to shift, shadows moving in rhythm with the predator pack. They were ready. And so was he. The jungle was alive with sounds of movement, but Elias no longer felt like an intruder. With the cub at his side, he began to see the alien world differently. The massive trees weren't just obstacles, they were pathways, homes, and observation posts. The vines could support his weight if climbed carefully, and the strange glowing plants offered soft light when night fell. The cub, whom he had named Kiri, moved with uncanny awareness. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, every scent in the air, it all registered with her. She nudged Elias when danger was near and slowed when a path was unsafe. He marveled at how instinct and intelligence blended in her. "Okay, Kiri," Elias said softly, crouching behind a fallen tree trunk while she scanned the surrounding foliage. "Let's find shelter before dark." Kiri made a low purr and led him deeper into the jungle. Elias followed, careful to stay close but letting her guide the pace. Despite the danger, he felt a strange comfort. He was no longer alone. Hours passed. The terrain became more treacherous, with jagged rocks and rivers that flowed with a strange silvery liquid. Kiri moved effortlessly, leaping across gaps that Elias had to carefully calculate before crossing. Yet even with her guidance, one misstep could be fatal. At one river crossing, Elias slipped on a wet rock. He fell forward, hands scraping against the hard surface. Kiri growled sharply, rushing to him. She placed her body between him and the water's edge, a silent warning. Elias looked into her eyes and understood. The cub had his back. I get it," Elias whispered, standing slowly. "We really are partners," Kiri responded with a soft chuff brushing against his leg. In that moment, Elias realized the human concept of friendship wasn't foreign to these creatures. It just took a different form. Loyalty wasn't given lightly, and trust was earned through actions. Night fell quickly on the planet. The sky glowed with strange colors, purples and greens swirling across the horizon. The jungle noises intensified, screeches, growls, the rustling of unseen wings. Elias knew he needed to find a safe place to rest. Kiri stopped near the base of a massive tree, sniffing the ground. Elias followed her gaze and saw a hollow just large enough for him to crouch inside. Kiri nudged him gently toward it. Inside it was dry and surprisingly secure. Elias sat leaning against the wall and watched Kiri patrol the entrance. The cub's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting vigilance and intelligence. "You really are remarkable," Elias said. "Not just smart, brave too." Kiri tilted her head, purring softly. Elias laughed quietly. "I guess that means you like me, huh?" The cub made a low chuff, almost like an agreement. Suddenly a distant roar echoed through the jungle, vibrating through the tree roots. Elias stiffened. "What was that?" he whispered. Kiri's ears twitched and she let out a warning growl. Elias realized the pack's instincts were far superior to his scanner. Whatever it was massive and dangerous. He had no weapons, only his wits and Kiri's protection. "We'll figure it out," he said firmly. "Together." The roar grew louder and soon another shadow emerged near the clearing outside the tree. Elias could just make out the massive form of a rival predator, a creature he later thought of as a razor beast. Its scales glimmered with sharp edges and its teeth were jagged like broken crystal. It was much larger than Kiri or her pack and moved with deadly purpose. Kiri growled, standing firmly in the hollow's entrance. Elias felt his pulse quicken. The razor beast snarled, clearly searching for prey. Elias noticed its eyes locking on him. He realized with horror that it had recognized the human as a potential target. Kiri's body tensed. She let out a sharp, piercing call. Within moments, the rest of her pack emerged from the shadows of the jungle. The alpha, massive and imposing, bared its teeth. Elias had seen packs of predators on Earth, but this was something else entirely. These creatures moved as one unit, anticipating each other's thoughts without a word. The razor beast lunged forward. Kiri and the pack intercepted it, claws raking, teeth snapping. Elias watched in awe as the battle unfolded. He had no way to physically help, yet his mind raced. He could think faster than the creatures, notice patterns they might not, and he could direct Kiri if needed. "Kiri, left now," he shouted instinctively, pointing toward a narrow gap between two trees. The cub obeyed immediately, leading him through the small space while the pack engaged the razor beast. Elias ran, adrenaline surging, his heart pounding in rhythm with Kiri's quick steps beside him. They emerged into a small clearing. Elias gasped for breath, his body trembling. Kiri sat beside him, tail flicking as she watched the pack from afar. They were winning the fight, holding the razor beast back, but Elias knew it was only temporary. "You saved me," again he said, panting. "I don't know how you do it." Kiri nudged him gently. Elias understood it wasn't magic. It was instinct, intelligence, and trust. Over the next days, Elias and Kiri moved through the jungle, learning from each other. He discovered how to use the environment to their advantage, rolling logs to create barriers, using the glowing plants as light sources, and even crafting basic traps with vines. Kiri watched, mimicking some actions and assisting in others. The rest of the pack began to observe him closely. Some members still kept a wary distance, unsure of his place. But gradually they started to see that Elias was not just clever. He was resourceful, courageous, and remarkably adaptive. When confronted with challenges, he didn't panic. He analyzed, he planned, and he acted decisively. One day, they reached a cliff overlooking a vast valley. The wind howled, carrying strange scents. Elias scanned the area. He noticed subtle signs, footprints of smaller creatures, broken branches, faint heat signatures. He gestured to the pack, pointing toward safe paths and areas with water. The alpha tilted its head, impressed. The other predators began to follow his guidance. Elias realized he was influencing them, not through force but through strategy. He was earning their respect in a way they couldn't ignore. Later, as night fell, Elias and Kiri rested near a glowing stream. The cub curled beside him, and Elias reflected on the journey so far. He had entered this world as prey, alone and vulnerable, yet now he had allies, creatures far stronger than himself, yet willing to protect him. Humans. "Maybe we're not as weak as we think," he murmured. Kiri's soft purr was the only response, but Elias felt understood. The night was not peaceful, though. Distant howls reminded him that danger was always present. Yet for the first time he felt a sense of purpose. He was learning to survive, not by brute force, but through intelligence, cooperation, and empathy. In the days that followed, Elias noticed more subtle signs of the pack's intelligence. They communicated with gestures, sounds, and even shared glances that conveyed complex meanings. He realized they had culture, hierarchy, and loyalty, and somehow he had become part of it, not as a dominant figure but as a respected companion. One morning, as they traversed a narrow canyon, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Rocks tumbled and a landslide threatened to trap them. Elias reacted instantly, shouting directions to Kiri. The cub guided him to safety, and the pack adjusted its path, saving him once again. After the danger passed, Elias knelt beside Kiri, brushing dust from her fur. "You really trust me," he said quietly. "I hope I'm worthy of it." Kiri leaned against him, a gesture of understanding, and Elias smiled despite the exhaustion. Through every challenge, he realized the truth. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but also resilient. They could adapt, strategize, and form bonds that even apex predators could not ignore, and in a world ruled by strength and instinct, those qualities were invaluable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the jungle in fiery hues, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The pack had accepted him, but the jungle still held countless dangers. Rival predators, hidden traps, and unknown landscapes awaited. Yet with Kiri by his side and the pack's cautious loyalty, he felt ready. For the first time stranded on a hostile world, Elias realized something extraordinary. Humanity's greatest strength was not in the body but in the mind and the heart. And if he could survive here, he could survive anywhere. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Morning light filtered through the thick canopy, illuminating dew-soaked leaves and revealing the true scale of the alien world. Elias and Kiri moved cautiously, the pack trailing behind, alert to every sound. The air smelled different today, heavier, charged with tension. Elias scanned the horizon and saw it, a massive shadow approaching from the valley. It was unlike any predator he had ever seen. Towering, armored, and moving with lethal purpose, it was a storm behemoth, a creature even the alpha of Kiri's pack seemed wary of. Its roar shook the ground and the very trees trembled under its weight. Elias's pulse quickened. He had survived storms, alien wildlife, and countless close encounters, but this was on another level. Kiri growled low in her throat, nudging him forward. Elias understood. This was a moment that would test them all. The cub's loyalty was clear, but the storm behemoth was a threat they could not ignore. The alpha stepped forward, snarling, muscles coiled. The rest of the pack fanned out around Elias, forming a protective circle. Elias glanced at them, realizing something extraordinary. These creatures, hunters by nature, were choosing to protect him, not just follow him. Their intelligence and empathy had grown to include him. Elias knelt briefly, touching the ground, feeling the rhythm of the jungle. He needed a plan. He couldn't fight this beast physically. Only strategy and coordination could save them. "Kiri," he whispered, "guide us. Use the terrain. Lead us to the ridge." The cub chirped softly, acknowledging. She darted forward, agile and precise, and the pack followed. The jungle erupted around them as the storm behemoth pursued. Trees crashed, vines whipped through the air, and the ground shook. Elias used every bit of knowledge he had gained in the last days, balancing, climbing, and creating improvised barriers from fallen branches and rocks. Kiri moved with him, her instincts predicting every trap and hazard. As they reached a ridge overlooking a chasm, Elias paused. Below, the valley stretched wide, filled with jagged rock spires and rushing rivers, a natural funnel. He had a plan, but it was risky. "Kiri," he said, pointing to a narrow ledge. "We need to get it there. Can you hurt it?" The cub nodded with a flick of her tail. Elias turned to the pack, raising a hand. They understood instantly. The storm behemoth roared again, leaping toward them. Elias shouted, "Now!" Kiri darted forward, leading the behemoth toward the natural trap. The pack followed, nipping at its legs, distracting it with sharp claws and coordinated movement. Elias stayed at the ridge, ready to manipulate the environment. The behemoth fell into the chasm, but not without struggle. Rocks tumbled and vines snapped, but the pack's coordination and Kiri's leadership guided it perfectly. The beast roared in frustration, trapped below, while Elias and the pack observed from above. A sense of exhilaration surged through him. He had survived, yes, but it was more than that. He had contributed, strategized, and earned their trust. And the pack had respected his intelligence enough to follow his lead. As the dust settled, the alpha approached Elias. There was no threat in its eyes, only acknowledgement. Elias reached out a hand cautiously. The alpha sniffed it, then brushed its massive head against his shoulder. It was a gesture of recognition, of acceptance. Kiri nudged his leg, purring softly. Elias smiled, a mix of relief and wonder. The cub had chosen him, and now the entire pack had recognized his value. Humans were not just prey. They were unpredictable, clever, and capable of leadership in ways even apex predators could admire. Over the following days, Elias explored more of the jungle with Kiri and the pack. They discovered hidden valleys, resource-rich streams, and even ancient alien ruins that hinted at the planet's long-lost civilizations. The pack accepted him as a companion, watching and learning from his strategies and decisions. Elias began documenting everything. He sketched the predators, recorded their behaviors, and noted their intelligence and communication methods. He realized that humans were unique, not for brute strength, but for the ability to reason, empathize, and inspire loyalty. The pack, he thought, embodied instinct and physical perfection, but it was humans who could bring innovation and leadership. One evening, as the sun set in streaks of crimson and gold, Elias and Kiri rested on a high cliff. The alpha and the pack were nearby, keeping watch. He looked at Kiri and said, "We've come a long way, haven't we?" She chirped softly, tail flicking. Elias laughed quietly. "And to think, I almost didn't survive the first day." Suddenly, a distant rumble shook the ridge. Elias tensed. "Not again," he muttered. Kiri leapt to her feet, ears twitching. The alpha growled, signaling the pack to readiness. From the horizon emerged another group of predators, rival packs, seeking to challenge Kiri's group, and perhaps claim the human as prey. Elias realized the real test was still ahead. This was the moment where the pack and humanity would prove their value together. "Kiri," Elias said calmly, "we fight together. Stay with me." The cub responded immediately, and the pack formed a tight protective circle around them. Elias took a deep breath, remembering every lesson, every path through the jungle, every trap, every strategy that had saved him before. The rival predators charged. The battle erupted with a cacophony of roars, snarls, and snapping teeth. Elias stayed at the center, directing Kiri and observing the terrain. He spotted hazards, creating makeshift barriers from fallen trees and rocks. He shouted warnings, and the pack adjusted instantly. Kiri darted between him and danger, her agility unmatched. She protected him from sudden strikes, drawing the attention of larger predators. The alpha moved as a unit with the pack, creating openings, forcing the rival predators into disadvantageous positions. Elias felt exhilaration and fear at the same time. He was outmatched physically, yes, but strategy, observation, and courage were his weapons. The rival predators, strong and fierce, underestimated him. They had never faced a human in battle, one who could think ahead, adapt instantly, and inspire loyalty. The fight reached a climax when Elias spotted a narrow gorge ahead. He realized it could serve as a final trap. With quick gestures, he directed Kiri and the pack toward it. The rival predators followed blindly, driven by aggression. Elias held his breath as the trap worked perfectly. The gorge funneled the attackers, and the pack struck decisively, forcing them into a confined space where they could be overwhelmed. Kiri led the charge, her courage unwavering. When the dust settled, the rival predators had retreated, defeated but alive. Elias exhaled, feeling both relief and triumph. He looked at Kiri, the alpha, and the pack. They were exhausted, yet their eyes held respect and acknowledgement. Elias knelt, touching the ground. "We did it," he whispered. "Together." The cub nuzzled him, and the alpha brushed its head against his shoulder once more. It was more than gratitude, it was recognition. Humanity had earned respect. Over the following days, Elias worked with the pack to explore the jungle further. He discovered safe passages, water sources, and even signs of ancient alien civilizations hidden deep in the forest. The pack followed his guidance, observing and learning. While he learned from their instincts and knowledge of the land, Elias began to understand a profound truth. Humans were not the strongest, but their intelligence, adaptability, and empathy allowed them to thrive even in alien environments. They could inspire loyalty, leadership, and cooperation in creatures far stronger and faster than themselves. One evening, as the sun set, painting the jungle in golden and crimson hues, Elias sat with Kiri and the alpha nearby. He looked at them, reflecting on the journey. "We survived not because we're the strongest, but because we worked together. And maybe that's what makes humans different." We can inspire others to protect us, and in doing so, we protect them too. The jungle was alive with distant sounds, predators, streams, and the wind, but Elias felt calm. He had arrived as prey, alone and vulnerable. Now he was part of a pack, respected, valued, and protected. Humanity had survived not through strength, but through courage, ingenuity, and heart. Kiri tilted her head, purring softly. Elias smiled. Yes, partner. We've done well, but there's so much more ahead. The alpha growled softly, a sign of approval. Elias understood completely. He had earned a place in this world not by overpowering it, but by understanding it, respecting it, and proving that humans, small, fragile, but clever and compassionate, were forces to be reckoned with, and in that moment, Elias knew something extraordinary. Humanity could survive anywhere, inspire loyalty in even the deadliest creatures, and find a place in the universe where others doubted it could exist. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were clever. And humans could be heroes, even on a world ruled by predators. The jungle was vast and dangerous, but Elias, Kiri, and the pack were ready. Together they were unstoppable.